The harsh fluorescent lights of Terminal 3 flickered above, casting long shadows across the cold linoleum floor. A man, with a backpack slung over one shoulder and exhaustion etched into every line of his face, lay sprawled across the uncomfortable chairs. His shoes were scuffed, his shirt wrinkled, and a small duffel bag served as his pillow. The announcement of a delayed flight echoed through the terminal, but he didn't flinch. He hadn't slept properly in weeks, not since the accident that had left his life fractured. He was a single father, and tonight, the airport was his only refuge. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroes among us, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Reports. Nathan Holloway, 42, had once been a man of stability, hardworking, meticulous, loved by his colleagues. But fate had a cruel way of rewriting his story. His wife, Madeline, had died in a sudden car crash 2 years ago, leaving Nathan to raise their 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, alone. Balancing 2 jobs, long hours, and a grieving child had drained him, leaving him exhausted and constantly on the verge of breaking. Tonight, he was on his way to a job interview in another city, one last chance to secure something better for Sophie, but the flight delay had turned into a marathon. And so, here he was, a man broken in public but determined in private, sprawled next to strangers while gripping a well-worn stuffed rabbit that Sophie refused to let go of. Beside him, an unassuming woman in her mid-30s adjusted her coat and pretended to scroll through her phone, though her piercing blue eyes didn't miss a single detail. She watched him as he shifted uneasily, curling closer to the duffel bag to get a bit more comfort. His face bore traces of sleepless nights and silent tears. The way he absently traced the rabbit's ears suggested a tenderness, a father's love that refused to waver despite the crushing weight of grief. She noted everything, the subtle tension in his shoulders, the quiet way he hummed to himself, probably a lullaby Sophie liked, the exhaustion that made him almost invisible to the bustling crowd around him. Her name was Agent Tessa Vance. On the surface, she was a routine traveler, waiting to catch a flight to Washington, D.C., but she had been assigned to an undercover observation in this very terminal. Nathan wasn't her target, far from it, but there was something about him that didn't fit the chaos around him, something raw and human that caught her attention. The rules of her job had taught her to stay detached, but the quiet pain in his eyes made her question that training. She had seen desperation before, but not the kind that demanded silent courage rather than defiance or anger. Nathan stirred, rubbing his temples and letting out a low groan. His phone buzzed, a text from Sophie, "Daddy, are you coming home tonight?" He stared at it, heart twisting. The answer was complicated. He wasn't sure when he'd see her next, but he typed back, "I'm on my way, pumpkin. Daddy's fighting for us." He knew she couldn't see the tears welling in his eyes. The hours dragged. Nathan's exhaustion deepened, and Tessa found herself unconsciously inching closer, though not too close to violate protocol. She saw him take out a small notebook from his bag, sketching something quickly. Sophie's face, she realized. The way he shaded the contours of her cheeks and the curve of her smile was meticulous, almost reverent. She felt a pang in her chest, something she rarely allowed herself to feel at work. Her phone rang, but she ignored it, drawn into the human story unfolding beside her. Nathan tried to sleep in fits and starts, leaning against the armrest, only to be jostled by travelers or awakened by the loudspeaker announcing another delay. Every interruption chipped away at him, but he refused to leave. His mind wandered to Sophie sleeping in her small apartment, waiting for the return of a father who seemed to be constantly battling invisible battles. Tessa watched as he struggled, the kind of struggle that doesn't ask for help, doesn't plead, it simply persists. She knew what it was like to carry the weight of responsibility in silence. But unlike Nathan, her burdens were hidden beneath layers of professionalism and secrecy. Yet, sitting there, observing a man whose love for his child was so palpable, she felt something shift inside her. It was empathy, pure and unfiltered, a reminder that some human connections transcend the boundaries of duty. The night deepened, and the terminal emptied. Nathan, still alert despite exhaustion, noticed the quiet stranger beside him. "Long night," he muttered without looking up. She nodded in response, not revealing her identity. "Yeah, sometimes airports feel lonelier than they should." He offered a small, tired smile, a shared acknowledgement of the loneliness they both felt in different ways. Hours passed. The first rays of dawn streaked across the horizon outside the glass walls of the terminal. Nathan finally dozed off, curling around the rabbit and the duffel bag as if they were shields against the relentless march of time. Tessa watched him, feeling a protective instinct she couldn't quite explain. She remembered her training, her mission objectives, and yet she stayed, unwilling to let the world overlook the quiet hero beside her. At one point, Nathan woke with a start. His flight was announced at last. He gathered his things quickly, brushing off the fatigue from his face, trying to reclaim a semblance of composure. Tessa got up as well, walking alongside him to the gate. First time traveling alone with a child, she asked casually, hiding the intensity of her watchful gaze. Nathan nodded, smiling faintly. Yeah. Not the easiest thing, but she makes it worth it. There was a pause, a quiet intimacy in the shared understanding of invisible struggles. When Nathan boarded the plane, he didn't notice the woman who had been silently rooting for him. But Tessa made a decision in that moment, a small, unprecedented act of humanity. She would send a note anonymously to the airline, commending him for his patience and resilience, a subtle way to honor a man whose bravery wasn't measured in feats of violence or daring but in love, sacrifice, and endurance. Weeks passed. Nathan's interview was successful, landing him a better job, a path toward stability he hadn't dared to imagine. Sophie's.